Are you watching me drink?
Or waiting for me to forget again?
Keneilwe, I only want you to rest.
Finish it before it gets cold, my love.
Funny, you always care more about the cup than about me. For weeks, you thought I was drinking mine.
What did you do, Keneilwe?
For nearly 2 months, he had smiled every night as he watched her drink every last sip. But he never knew that for weeks, the person switching their cups had been her. Where are you watching from today? Comment your city before this story begins. Sunlight slipped across the tall glass buildings of Sandton, Johannesburg, covering the financial district in a thin golden layer like honey. On the ground floor of the building, on Rosebank Avenue, the sign for Ramotsamai Living Studio lit up in elegant metallic letters, reflecting the shadows of luxury cars gliding slowly outside. Keneilwe Ramotsamai stepped out of her pearl-colored SUV, one hand holding a chestnut-brown leather bag, the other gently adjusting the hem of her blue Ankara coat, patterned with burnt orange details. She was not the kind of woman who entered a room trying to capture attention. She only had to stand straight, keep her eyes calm, and speak clearly enough, and people naturally listened. In Johannesburg's high-end interior design world, Keneilwe's name was no longer unfamiliar. She designed penthouses for bank executives, holiday villas for mining entrepreneurs, and private offices for successful women who wanted their workspaces to reflect their worth. Clients loved her not only because she knew how to choose Italian marble, South African walnut wood, or handcrafted brass lighting from Cape Town. They loved the way she listened. She could look at a woman sitting silently on a sofa, hear her say she wanted a warmer home, and transform years of hidden exhaustion into a living room filled with sunlight, new wood, and peace. "Good morning, Miss Keneilwe," Nthabiseng, the receptionist, said with a slight bow when she saw her walk in. Keneilwe smiled. "Good morning. The proteas are beautiful today. I ordered them exactly the way you like them. White proteas, silver leaves, and a little touch of small yellow daisies. Very tasteful." The studio was bright and spacious, with cream walls, softly polished stone floors, and fabric samples arranged by color, from terracotta, moss green, turmeric yellow, to deep wine red. In the center of the room stood a large ebony table covered with drawings, tile samples, imported catalogs, and a hand-painted ceramic vase from KwaZulu-Natal. Everything in Keneilwe's studio had intention. Nothing was there simply to show wealth. Luxury to her had to have a soul. She walked past the design team's workspace, nodding to each person. "Has everyone reviewed the mood board for the Hyde Park Villa?" A male employee named Sifamandla looked up. "Yes, ma'am. I sent you the final revision to review." Keneilwe paused slightly. "Sent it to me?" "Yes. You replied to the email last night. You said to go with the light travertine stone and remove the gray stone because it made the space feel too cold." For one brief moment, the sounds in the studio seemed to lower. The printer was still running. The reception phone was still ringing. The footsteps of clients outside the hallway were still clicking softly. But all Keneilwe could hear was that sentence repeating in her head. "You replied to the email last night." She kept the smile on her face, not letting anyone see the confusion that had just passed through her eyes. "That's right," she said slowly. "I remember now. Please print that version for me." "Yes, ma'am." Keneilwe walked straight into her private office. When the frosted glass door closed behind her, she placed her bag on the desk and opened her laptop. Her inbox appeared. Just as Sifamandla had said, there was an email from her account sent to the entire design team. The tone was hers. The wording was hers. The decision was something she would have chosen, but she did not remember writing it. Keneilwe sat down, the soft leather chair wrapped around her back, but instead of comfort, she felt a small coldness running down her spine. She placed her fingers against her temples, trying to pull the memory back. After dinner, she remembered Shepiso making tea. She remembered him placing the white porcelain cup with a gold rim in front of her. She remembered his gentle voice telling her she needed more rest. She remembered the scent of hibiscus rising from the cup, slightly sour, warm, and sweet. After that, everything blurred. Not darkness, not normal sleep. A clean, empty space, as if someone had wiped a glass surface and erased every fingerprint she had left behind. She opened her work calendar. There was an appointment with a new client. The client's name was Mrs. Lebogang Moremi, the owner of a luxury spa chain in Pretoria, who wanted to redesign her penthouse apartment in Santon. Keneilwe stared at the woman's name, then at the notes below. Style: African minimal luxury, natural materials preferred, private meditation space, avoid black. She frowned. She did not remember that consultation call. A gentle knock sounded at the door. Come in. Nabeseng opened the door holding a cream-colored file. Ma'am, Mrs. Moremi has arrived. I invited her to sit in the lounge area. Keneilwe looked up. Now? Ndabising looked briefly surprised. Yes, ma'am. It's on your schedule. I know. Keneilwe immediately stood up, pulling back the calm expression she had learned to wear after years of dealing with demanding clients. Give me 2 minutes. When Ndabising left, Keneilwe quickly opened the client file. Her heart beat harder. Normally, before every meeting, she remembered clearly what the client liked, disliked, and what they were truly seeking beneath their surface requests. That was her greatest advantage. She did not just design homes. She could read the emotions of the people who would live in them. But this time, she felt like someone entering an unfamiliar room without turning on the lights. She took a deep breath, picked up the file, and walked out. Mrs. Moremi was a woman in her 40s, wearing a copper silk dress and a delicate gold-beaded necklace. She stood when she saw Keneilwe. Keneilwe, it's so good to see you again. Again. The word struck her softly in the chest. It is good to see you again too, Mrs. Moremi, Keneilwe replied, extending her hand. You look radiant today. The client laughed. You are just as graceful with words as you were on our call. I told my husband you were the only person who understood why I did not want my apartment to feel like a cold hotel. Keneilwe smiled, but inside, her grip on the file tightened. A home should not only be beautiful for others to admire, she said. It must be real enough for the person living there to breathe. Miss Moremi nodded with satisfaction. That is exactly what you said on the call. I loved it. Hearing that made Keneilwe's heart feel heavier. She had said that. It sounded exactly like something she believed, but she had absolutely no memory of it. The meeting continued under silent tension. No one noticed because Keneilwe was too skilled at hiding it. She turned each page of notes, asked open questions, and let the client speak more. She relied on experience, professional instinct, and her ability to observe lipstick shade, hand gestures, and the way the woman looked at each material board. She still completed the meeting professionally. Mrs. Moremi left with a smile and promised to transfer the deposit. The moment the elevator doors closed, Keneilwe stood still in the middle of the studio. Sifamandla walked over, excited. You handled that beautifully, ma'am. She will definitely sign the contract. Keneilwe looked at him. Can you send me the notes from the first call? Sorry? He blinked. You wrote them yourself. I want to double-check a few details. Oh yes, I'll scan the file and send it to you. Keneilwe nodded. Thank you. She returned to her private office and closed the door. This time, she did not sit down right away. She stood before the wall where her old project drawings were displayed, looking at each completed design. A villa with a living room opening into a jacaranda garden. A high-rise apartment using turmeric yellow and ocean blue to evoke memories of Durban. A reading room for a female lawyer who had once told her, I want a place where no one can make me feel small. Keneilwe had helped so many women create spaces where they could be themselves. Yet now, she was not even sure what she had done, what she had said, or what she remembered. Her phone vibrated on the desk. It was Chepiso. She looked at her husband's name on the screen for a moment before answering. Are you at the studio? His voice sounded warm, deep, and always in control. Yes, you sound tired. I just finished meeting a client. Which client? Mrs. Moremi. Oh, the woman who owns the spa, right? You told me about her. Keneilwe went silent for a beat. I told you? Shepiso chuckled softly through the phone. Keen, you forgot again. You talked about her for a long time last night, you said. She wanted her apartment not to feel like a cold hotel. Her fingers touched the edge of the desk. Maybe I have been working too much. I think so too. His voice softened, almost soothing. come home early tonight. I'll make something light, and I'll prepare tea for you. A very ordinary sentence, a sentence that used to warm her heart. But today, for reasons she could not fully explain, when she heard the word tea, a deep silence opened inside her chest. I still have work, she replied. Work can wait. Your health matters more than a contract. Keneilwe, he called her name slowly. I am only worried about you. She closed her eyes for a moment. That was exactly what made it so hard to doubt him. Shepiso had never shouted at her. He had never embarrassed her in front of others. He was not the kind of man who slammed tables or used rough words. He opened the car door for her. He chose the wine at dinner. He remembered the day she signed her first major contract. He always placed a hand at the small of her back when they walked into business events, as if he were protecting her from the whole world. Some cages are not made of iron. They are made of perfectly timed tenderness. I'll come home, she said. Good, I love you. Keneilwe looked down at the file on her desk. I love you too. She ended the call but did not immediately put the phone down. The sentence "you forgot again" kept echoing in her mind. Recently, Shepiso had been saying it more often, always in a gentle voice, always with a smile, always as if he were only reminding her of a truth she needed to accept. You forgot. You are tired. You need me to help. You should not carry everything alone. She opened a drawer and took out a brand new notebook with a deep wine-red leather cover, one she had bought at a craft fair in Maboneng but had never used. She placed it in front of herself. For a few seconds, she only looked at the notebook as if it were a door. Then she opened the first page. She wrote her name, Keneilwe Ramotsamai. Then she continued, today I forgot an email I sent. I forgot a client consultation call. But the email is real, the notes are real. Everyone else remembers. She stopped writing. Part of her wanted to close the notebook, to scold herself for exaggerating. Successful women got tired too. Running a studio, caring for clients, preserving a marriage, appearing perfect at elegant events, paying employees on time, remembering every fabric sample and every small request. All of that was enough to exhaust anyone. But another part of her refused to stay silent. It was small, but clear. It said something was not right. The afternoon passed with calls, drawings, and decisions that Keneilwe forced herself to record carefully. Whenever she said something to an employee, she wrote it down. Whenever she sent an email, she wrote it down. Whenever her head felt slightly heavy, she wrote it down. No one in the studio knew the boss was quietly building a rope to pull herself out of the fog. Before leaving the office, she stood before the mirror in the dressing room. The woman in the mirror still looked beautiful, elegant, wearing carefully chosen clothes and the gold leaf-shaped earrings her mother had given her. No one looking at her would think she was afraid. But Keneilwe knew she was not afraid of losing a contract, not afraid of a client complaint, not afraid of her employees thinking she had become weak. What frightened her was the possibility that one day, if everyone kept telling her she was forgetful long enough, she might start trusting them more than she trusted herself. That evening, when the car turned into the gate of the modern villa she shared with Shepiso, the garden lights were already glowing. White flowers along the walkway trembled softly in the breeze. Through the large glass door, she saw her Hassan's shadow in the open kitchen, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his posture calm like a man any woman would be proud to call her husband. On the white stone kitchen island, 2 porcelain cups had already been prepared. Keneilwe stayed in the car for a little longer. She looked at those 2 cups. Then she looked at the red notebook in her bag. Tonight she had no proof, no answer. She did not know whether she was facing exhaustion, illness, or something far more heartbreaking. But for the first time in weeks, she was not going to let her memories drift away and disappear. She would write, she would observe, she would listen to herself. Because sometimes the moment a woman begins to save herself is not when she screams in the face of the person hurting her. It is when she sits quietly, opens a notebook, and decides that from today on, no one will be allowed to write the truth of her life for her. The villa of Keneilwe Ramotsamai and Shepiso Motlang glowed in the upscale neighborhood of Santon like a glass box filled with warm gold. Outside, neatly trimmed tree stood silently beneath the garden lights. Inside, the open dining room connected to a modern kitchen with polished white stone counters, teardrop-shaped crystal pendant lights, and abstract paintings inspired by Ndebele patterns hanging on the walls. Keneilwe walked into the house with her leather bag still on her shoulder. The long day at the studio had left her shoulder slightly aching, but the heaviest thing was not in her body. It was in her mind, inside those strange blank spaces she could not name. The email she did not remember sending, the client call she did not remember making. The words other people insisted were hers, yet in her memory they were empty, like an unfurnished room. Shibiso stood in the kitchen, his white shirt open at the collar, sleeves neatly rolled up, his silver watch shining beneath the lights. He turned when he heard the sound of her heels. "You're home," he said, his voice so warm that anyone watching from the outside would believe this was a marriage without cracks. Keneilwe set her bag on a chair. "Yes, today was a little long." "I know," Chepiso smiled and stepped closer, kissing her lightly on the forehead. "I can see it just by looking at you." A gentle sentence, a familiar gesture. But tonight, instead of feeling comforted, Keneilwe felt something inside her pause. Not because he had done anything clearly wrong. That was exactly what made her uncomfortable. Shepiso was never rude. He never raised his voice. He never slammed doors, never shouted, never did anything obvious enough for her to point at and say, "This is why I feel unsafe." He was simply too perfectly timed, always present when she was tired, always aware of what she had forgotten, always telling her she needed rest. "I made pumpkin soup with ginger," he said. "Something light. It won't make you feel too full. Thank you. Go shower first. I'll set the table." Keneilwe nodded and went upstairs to the bedroom. The room was wide, with glass doors overlooking the city and ivory curtains falling softly to the floor. On the bed lay a moss-green silk nightdress, placed neatly like something in a five-star hotel. Once, she had loved these little things. Chepiso was thoughtful. Chepiso was attentive. Chepiso knew she liked warm towels, hot tea, soft jazz, and vanilla candles after a stressful day. But when someone arranges everything around you too perfectly, sometimes you begin to wonder, are they caring for you, or are they creating a world where only they know where everything belongs? Keneilwe changed clothes, then quietly took the red notebook from her bag. She wrote a few quick lines before going downstairs. Home. Shepiso cooked dinner. He said he could tell I was tired just by looking at me. There are 2 cups on the kitchen island. She stopped writing at the last line. 2 cups. She had never paid attention before, but almost every night, the 2 cups were already waiting before dinner ended. One for her, one for him. The same white porcelain, the same gold rim, the same set they had bought after a trip to Cape Town 3 years earlier. Only one tiny thing was different. Hers was usually placed on the right, closer to the teapot. His was on the left. Maybe it was only a habit. Maybe it meant nothing. But from today onward, Keneilwe did not want to ignore small things anymore. When she returned to the dining room, Shepiso had finished preparing dinner. Smooth golden pumpkin soup sat inside black ceramic bowls. Toasted bread rested on a wooden plate, and an avocado and cherry tomato salad was arranged as carefully as a dish in a rooftop restaurant. On the table were white proteas, linen napkins, and 2 glasses of mineral water with lemon slices. "Sit down," he said. "Tonight, let me serve the queen of this house." Keneilwe looked at him. "You make it sound like I'm seriously ill." He chuckled softly. "Not seriously ill. You just refuse to admit you need to be cared for." She sat down. "I can still take care of myself. I know." He placed the soup in front of her. "But being a strong woman does not mean you have to do everything alone all the time." It was a beautiful sentence. So beautiful that if it had been placed in a speech about marriage, many people would have applauded. Keneilwe lowered her head and tasted a spoonful of soup. The pumpkin was sweet, the ginger warm, the cream rich but balanced. Everything was perfect. She almost wanted to scold herself for suspecting the man sitting across from her. He had cooked for her. He remembered every preference she had. He asked about the client, the studio, the wall colors she had chosen for the new project. He listened closely and even mentioned Mrs. Morimi before she had the chance to say the name. Was she satisfied? He asked. Yes, there is a strong chance she will sign the contract. I told you. No one understands space the way you do. Keneilwe looked up. You remember my call with her so clearly? Chepiso shrugged. You told me last night. Did I say a lot? Quite a lot. He smiled. You even said she didn't want the apartment to feel a cold hotel. She set her spoon down very gently. I don't remember telling you that. Chepiso's smile did not disappear. It only became softer, like the smile of an adult speaking to a child who was worrying for no reason. Kin, you're stressing yourself again. I'm only asking. I know, but you're asking because you're afraid you forgot. He leaned toward her, and that is why I'm worried. Recently, you haven't been sleeping enough. You are carrying too much. Staff, clients, finances, the house, both families. No one can keep everything in their head forever. She remained silent. He was partly right, and that was the most dangerous part. A complete lie is often easy to recognize, but a lie wrapped inside a half-truth can make the listener doubt herself. After dinner, Shepiso stood first. I'll make thee tea. The sentence fell into the dining room like a small stone dropping into a porcelain bowl. Keneilwe watched him walk toward the kitchen. He opened the upper cabinet, took out the hibiscus tea, then reached for a small glass jar filled with dried herbs. His movements were slow and familiar. He did not need to look at the label. He did not need to measure for long. A pinch of red tea, a little dried herb mixture, hot water, honey. She watched his hands. Beautiful, clean, calm. Those hands had once held hers in front of their relatives during their traditional wedding, when both families exchanged gifts and the aunties sang old blessings. Those hands had once helped her choose curtains for her first studio, rested on her back the night her mother passed away, and pulled out chairs for her at dinners filled with entrepreneurs, lawyers, and bank directors. And now, those same hands were making tea. You're looking at me as if I'm a difficult design plan, Shepiso said, turning back with a smile. Keneilwe blinked. I was just thinking. Thinking about work again? Not exactly. He placed 2 cups on a tray. Don't think too much. That's why you need tea. He set the cup on the right in front of her. As always, Keneilwe picked it up. The heat pressed into her palm. The familiar scent of hibiscus rose from the cup, slightly sour, lightly sweet, mixed with an herbal smell she could not quite name. Before, that smell had meant the end of a long day. Now it felt like a question without an answer. Shepiso sat across from her, but he did not drink right away. He watched her, not too obviously, not tensely, just like a husband waiting for his wife to drink something he had made. If she told this to someone else, they might laugh. What was frightening about a husband watching his wife drink tea? What was wrong with a man caring for his wife after a tiring day? Keneilwe had once thought that too. She raised the cup to her lips. Careful, it's hot, he said. She paused. You haven't had yours? I'll drink mine after. I want to make sure you drink yours while it's still warm. Tea can still be drunk when it cools, but it loses the relaxing effect. The relaxing effect? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Chepiso tilts his head slightly. I mean, the warmth helps you sleep. Oh. She took a tiny sip, very tiny, enough for her lips to touch the tea, enough for him to see she had drunk, but not enough for her to feel she had lowered her guard. The sweetness of honey coated her tongue, but behind it was a thin bitterness, almost hidden. Maybe it was from the herbs, maybe it was her imagination. Shepiso was still watching. Is it good? He asked. As usual. Finish it, then go rest. I'll clean up. She set the cup down. I want to check a few drawings first. His eyes changed for a second, very quickly, so quickly that if she had not been watching, she would have missed it. Now? Just for a few minutes. You just said you were tired. I know. Then leave it until tomorrow. The client is waiting for feedback. Keneilwe. His voice remained gentle, but he said her name more slowly. Don't be stubborn. The room fell silent, not the silence of anger, the silence of a boundary being touched. Keneilwe looked at her husband. I only want to check the drawings, and I only want my wife to rest. Are you ordering me? Shepiso immediately exhaled, as if she had misunderstood the most caring thing in the world. No. See, this is exactly what I mean. Lately, you have been so sensitive. Whatever I say, you take it heavily. She lowered her eyes to the tea. Once again, he was not entirely wrong. She had become more sensitive. She was tired. But why did every conversation end with the same conclusion? The problem was her. She was sensitive. She forgot. She worked too much. She needed him to decide for her. Keneilwe picked up the cup again. This time, she did not drink. She only tilted it so the steam touched her face, then set it back down. "You're right," she said. Shepiso softened immediately. "I don't want to be right. I just want you to be healthy. I'll rest. Finish the tea first." The sentence was spoken very gently, but it made Keneilwe's fingers go cold. She looked at him. "You really care whether I finish it?" He laughed, but the sound was shorter than usual. "Because I made it for you. Should I want you to waste it?" "Yes, it shouldn't be wasted." She lifted the cup, took another tiny sip, then set it down again. Shepiso looked at the cup. This time, he could not fully hide his attention. His gaze was not on her face. It was on the level of the tea. Keneilwe felt her heart beat slow, not because she was calm, because in that moment, a small piece finally fell into place. A caring husband would ask if she was tired. A loving husband would tell her to rest. But a husband who needed to make sure something happened would look at the cup. She stood, taking the cup with her. "I'll bring it upstairs." Shepiso stood too. "Why bring it upstairs?" "I want to drink it slowly. Drink it here. I'll sit with you." "You just said you had to clean up." "I can clean up later." They looked at each other across the polished dining table, between beautiful porcelain plates, white flowers, warm lights, and the sweet scent of tea. Everything around them was still luxuriously perfect. But in Keneilwe's eyes, the room suddenly felt like a stage, where both of them had been playing their roles for so long they had forgotten who was the audience and who was writing the script. She smiled first. "Fine, I'll drink it here." Shepiso sat down satisfied. Keneilwe sat again. She lifted the cup several times, each time only letting her lips touch it while most of the tea remained inside. She talked about drawings, clients, and a new project, keeping his eyes busy with her face instead of the tea level. When he glanced away to answer a message, she discreetly pulled the napkin closer, partly hiding the cup behind the flower vase. She had no plan yet, no proof. She did not know what was inside that tea. But she knew one thing. Shepiso's reaction when she did not finish did not resemble the ordinary disappointment of someone whose kindness had been refused. It resembled the worry of someone afraid that one link in a plan had not been completed. A little later, she pretended to yawn. "I'm going upstairs to sleep." Shepiso looked at the cup. "You haven't finished it. I'm sleepy. Just a few more sips." Keneilwe looked at him for a long time. Then she lifted the cup, tilted it towards her lips, letting him believe she was drinking the last of it. But instead of swallowing, she held the tea in her mouth for a brief moment, turned away as if coughing, and covered her mouth with the napkin. The movement was so small that even she was surprised by how calmly she managed it. When she set the cup down, it was almost empty. Shepiso smiled. "See, that wasn't so hard." "Yes," she replied softly. "It wasn't hard." He stepped closer and kissed her hair. "Good night, Keen." "Good night." She went up the stairs slowly, holding the red notebook tightly in the pocket of her robe. Once inside the bedroom, she locked the bathroom door, turned on the faucet to cover the sound, and spat the tea she had kept in her mouth into the sink. Then she rinsed her mouth several times, watching the water carry away the faint red color like a secret escaping her body. She stood in front of the mirror. The face looking back at her was still Keneilwe Ramotsamai, a woman in moss green silk, hair in a low bun, gold earrings glowing beside her neck, eyes deeper and more awake than she had expected. She took out the red notebook. She wrote line after line. "Shepiso reminded me to finish the tea. He watched the level in the cup. He was uncomfortable when I wanted to take it upstairs. When I said I was sleepy, he still asked me to drink more." She stopped writing. Her hand was not shaking. That surprised her. Maybe the greatest fear was not suspecting a man you loved. Maybe the greatest fear was living for many more years inside a truth your instincts had already sensed, but your heart was too afraid to face. That night, Keneilwe did not sleep right away. She sat by the window, looking at the lights of Santon in the distance like diamonds scattered across the dark glass of the city. Downstairs, Chepiso still moved quietly, clearing dishes, turning off lights, locking doors. Every sound was familiar. Every gesture belonged to her home. But for the first time, she understood that a beautiful house did not mean it was safe. A gentle husband did not mean he could not be controlling. And a cup of tea prepared by loving hands could still become the thing that made a woman forget how strong she once was. Keneilwe closed the notebook. Tomorrow, she would not accuse him. She would not cry. She would not question Chibiso with a wounded heart and let him use that pain to turn everything back against her. She would observe. She would write. She would find the truth the same way she had built an entire studio from nothing. Carefully, patiently, with a plan, and without letting emotion destroy the final structure. Because some battles do not begin with a scream, they begin with an unfinished cup of tea. And with the moment, a woman decides that from now on, her peace will no longer depend on anyone else's smile. Keneilwe Ramotsamai walked into a private neurology clinic on a high floor of a glass building in Santon, where wide windows looked down over clean streets, luxury cars, and the hurried rhythm of Johannesburg's financial district. She wore a turmeric yellow midi dress, an emerald blazer embroidered with ndebele patterns at the cuffs, nude heels, and a small leather bag held close at her side. From the outside, she still looked like a successful woman. But inside, she carried a red notebook full of things that would not let her rest. 3 days after the night, she realized Chepiso always watched the level of tea in her cup. Keneilwe no longer lived the way she used to. She still went to the studio, still met clients, still chose fabrics, approved drawings, adjusted paint colors, and spoke to her staff with a calm voice. She still smiled when clients praised her taste. She still appeared in colorful, elegant outfits, like a woman untouched by anything that could shake her. But every night before sleeping, she opened the red notebook. She recorded every meal, every phone call, every sentence Chepiso said, every time he reminded her to drink the tea. Every morning she woke up with her head feeling heavy, as if she had walked through a long rain. What frightened her was not exhaustion. Every grown woman had been tired before. A woman running a business understood even more deeply what it meant to divide herself into many pieces. One piece for work, one for employees, one for clients, one for family, and the last piece, if anything, remained for herself. But this exhaustion was different. It did not arrive after a day of overwork. It arrived after nights with tea. The clinic receptionist stood when she walked in. "Good morning, Mrs. Ramotsamai. Dr. Agiel is expecting you." "Thank you." The clinic was spacious and quiet, without the cold smell of a hospital. The walls were cream, the chairs were brown leather. A vase of bird of paradise flowers stood beside the water table, and on the shelf were a few small wooden sculptures of women carrying water pots, traditional yet elegant. Places like this were designed so people with money would not feel as if they were seeing a doctor, but stepping into a private consultation. Keneilwe sat down, placing her bag on her lap. She hated this feeling, the feeling of having to prove to someone else that she was still normal. The door opened. A middle-aged man walked in, wearing a white coat over a light gray suit. He had a calm face, deep eyes, hair touched with silver, and a steady voice. "Mrs. Ramotsamai?" "Yes, I'm Dr. Agile Sechele. It's good to meet you, though I imagine the reason you are here does not make you comfortable." Keneilwe stood and shook his hand. "That's true, doctor." He invited her to sit. "I've reviewed your appointment notes. You said you have recently been forgetful, sleeping unusually deeply, and struggling to concentrate." "Yes." "When did it begin?" Keneilwe was silent for a moment. "It's hard to say exactly. Perhaps almost 2 months ago." "Any major event? Work pressure? Grief? Financial dispute? Long-term insomnia?" "Work has always been stressful, but that is not new. I have run my studio for years. I'm used to it." Dr. Agil nodded, not rushing to conclusions. "Can you describe the forgetfulness more specifically?" Keneilwe opened her bag and took out the red notebook. Before come here, she had wondered whether she should bring it. Part of her feared the doctor would look at it and think she was becoming obsessive. But another part of her understood that if she did not present the truth clearly, someone else could easily call her fear imagination. "I started writing things down," she said. He looked at the notebook without judgment. That was a very good thing to do. That sentence made Keneilwe's throat tighten slightly. Just one simple sentence. Yet it was so different from the way Shepiso spoke. Shepiso often said, "You're getting tense again. You need rest. You're overthinking." But the doctor said that writing things down was good. That meant she was not crazy. At least no one here was making her feel that way. She opened the notebook. "I forgot an email I sent. I forgot a consultation call with a client. Some mornings I wake up and do not remember what I discussed with my husband the night before. But everyone else says I did say those things. I also see the messages, the emails, the notes. They are real. The handwriting is mine. The wording is mine. But the memory is missing." Dr. Ogill read several lines, his expression still calm. "Do you have headaches?" "Yes, some mornings." "Nausea?" "Not often." "Do you drink alcohol?" "Very little. Mostly at events." "Sleeping pills?" "No anti-anxiety medication?" "No supplements?" Keneilwe was about to say no, then stopped. "Multivitamins and herbal tea at night." The doctor looked up. "Herbal tea? My husband makes it. Hibiscus tea with some herbs. He says it helps me sleep." "Do you drink it every night?" "Almost every night." "Before these symptoms began, were you drinking that tea as regularly?" Keneilwe looked down at her hands. The rose gold wedding ring sat quietly on her ring finger, shining under the clinic lights. She remembered the day Shepiso placed it on her finger. He had said in front of both families that he would always protect her, that he would never let her stand alone in life. That day, she had worn a traditional dress in deep wine red and gold. Her aunties had sung, her mother had cried. Her father had placed a hand on Shepiso's shoulder as if handing over the most precious thing he had. She had never imagined that one day she would sit in front of a doctor and question what her husband prepared for her every night. "No," she answered. "Before, only sometimes. Recently, he has been making it more often." Dr. Ogill set down his pen. "I'm going to perform some tests for memory, reflexes, and attention. After that, we'll talk further." The test lasted longer than Keneilwe expected. He asked her to remember lists of words, repeat number sequences, copy shapes, recognize patterns, answer questions, and respond to signals on a screen. She concentrated with everything she had, not because she wanted a high score, but because she needed to know the truth about herself. When everything was finished, her palms were slightly damp. Dr. Ogill reviewed the results, then looked up. "Your store. Responses are within the normal range. Your short-term memory is good. Your attention does not show any clear sign of impairment under testing conditions." Keneilwe exhaled, but she did not feel completely relieved. "Then why am I forgetting?" "There are several possibilities. Stress, lack of sleep, hormonal issues, the effects of a substance, or a combination of factors." He paused. "But based on what you have recorded, I do not want to ignore the possibility of something in your living environment." "What do you mean?" He looked directly at her, his voice still gentle but clear. "Is there anything at home that you use regularly before sleeping?" The question landed slowly. It was not loud. It was not harsh. But it made everything Keneilwe had tried to ignore for days suddenly and clearly, as if a light had been switched on in a dark room. Tea. The cup on the right. Shepiso's eyes watching the level. The sentence, "Finish it first," his discomfort when she wanted to take the cup upstairs. She closed the notebook. "Are you saying I should suspect the tea?" "I am not saying you should conclude anything without proof," Dr. Ogill replied. "I am saying that if a symptom repeatedly appears after a specific habit, that habit should be examined." "How do I examine it?" "If you feel safe, you can keep a sample of the tea in a clean container and take it to an independent lab. But I want to be clear. Do not confront anyone if you are not yet sure what you are dealing with." Keneilwe looked at him. "Do you think someone is trying to harm me?" "I don't know," he answered immediately, without exaggerating and without frightening her. "I only know that your symptoms are real, and our task is to find the real cause." That sentence made Keneilwe's eyes sting. Not because she was weak, but because after weeks of hearing people tell her she was forgetful, sensitive, and in need of rest, finally someone had said that what she was experiencing was real. "My husband is the one who makes the tea," she said softly. Dr. Owagile stayed silent for a few seconds. There was no pity in his eyes, no cheap curiosity. Only the seriousness of someone who understood that behind that sentence stood an entire marriage, a home, a trust, and many years of life. I understand this is difficult, he said, but you do not have to decide how you feel today. You only need to decide your next step safely. The next step is to keep a sample of the tea. If you choose to do that and continue writing things down, record which days you drink it, which days you don't, and how you feel the next morning. If possible, avoid drinking more until you have results. He will notice. Then prioritize your safety. No evidence is worth more than your safety. Keneilwe nodded. She had met many intelligent men in her life, clients, investors, lawyers, architects, bank directors. But not every intelligent person made others feel respected. Owagile did not try to take control of her story. He did not tell her whom to believe, whom to leave, or whom to confront. He only placed one thing back into her hands, something she had been losing recently: the right to verify the truth. When she left the clinic, Keneilwe walked slowly down the long corridor. Outside the glass doors, Santan was still bright, still luxurious, still busy. Women in silk suits stepped out of elevators. A businessman spoke through wireless earphones. A security guard bowed to her. The world continued as usual, as if something inside her had not just cracked open. She went down to the parking garage, got into her car, and closed the door. The car was quiet. She took out the red notebook and opened a new page. Test results normal. Doctor asked about what I used before sleeping. He said not to conclude without proof. Need to keep a tea sample. Need to stay safe. She stopped writing at the word safe. Her villa was beautiful. Her kitchen was modern. Her husband was gentle. But if a woman had to secretly test what she drank inside her own home, then perhaps that place was no longer a shelter. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were still calm. But beneath that calm was a pain difficult to name. Not the pain of someone who already knew for certain she had been betrayed. It was the pain of someone standing before the door of truth, praying that when it opened, the person behind it would not be the one she had loved most. Her phone vibrated. A message from Shepiso appeared. Are you done with the doctor? I'm worried about you. I'll make your tea early tonight. Keneilwe read the message again and again. If this had been a week earlier, it would have warmed her. If this had been a month earlier, she would have replied with a heart. But today, after the doctor's question, every word in that message seemed to sit under a different light. I'm worried about you. I'll make your tea early tonight. She set the phone down without replying immediately. Outside, sunlight reflected off the glass buildings, brilliant and cold. Keneilwe gripped the steering wheel and took a deep breath. She could not panic. She could not rush. She could not let fear run ahead of reason. She had built a studio with patience, one drawing, one client, one small contract at a time. If her life was truly being taken apart piece by piece, she would use that same patience to put the pieces back where they belonged. She replied with one short sentence. I'm fine. I'll be home tonight. Then she put the phone away and started the car. That day, Keneilwe had no proof, no confession, no one standing beside her except a red notebook and one question from a doctor. But sometimes the right question at the right moment can save a woman from years of doubting herself. And on the road back to the studio, Keneilwe understood that from this month forward, she would never again drink any act of care without first looking closely at what had been placed inside it. The kitchen in Keneilwe Ramotsamai's modern villa glowed beneath the soft golden lights, making the white stone island look almost too clean, too perfect, too peaceful for what was happening inside her heart. Outside the tall glass doors, Santan shimmered in the distance with its towers, luxury apartments, and quiet streets lined with expensive cars. Inside, everything smelled of polished wood, fresh flowers, and the hibiscus tea Shepiso Motlomot was preparing with the same calm hands he used every night. Keneilwe sat at the dining table, wearing a deep purple silk robe with gold enderbell embroidery along the sleeves. Her hair was tied into a low bun, her face carefully relaxed, her red notebook hidden inside the drawer of the console table behind her. Tonight, she had come home with one decision. She would not accuse. She would not cry. She would not ask Cheba why he kept watching her drink. She would only collect what the truth needed. Shepiso turned from the kitchen counter and smiled at her. "You're quiet tonight. I'm just tired." His face softened immediately, as if her answer had given him exactly what he wanted. "That is what I've been trying to tell you, King. You keep pushing yourself until your body has to beg for rest." She looked at him, letting her expression remain gentle. "Maybe you're right. I am not trying to be right." He carried the tray toward the table. 2 porcelain cups sat on it, white with thin gold rims, steam rising from both. "I am trying to take care of my wife." The words should have warmed her. Instead, they moved through her like cold water. He placed the cup on the right in front of her, just as he always did. Keneilwe looked down at it. The tea was a dark ruby red, almost beautiful enough to be innocent. The scent of hibiscus rose first, tart and floral, then the sweetness of honey, then that faint bitter herbal smell she had begun to notice only after she started paying attention. Shepiso sat opposite her. His own cup remained untouched. "How was the doctor?" he asked. Keneilwe lifted her eyes. He said stress could be one reason. A small smile appeared at the corner of Tepiso's mouth. "See, I told you." He also said I should build a better sleep routine. "Exactly." Tepiso leaned back, satisfied. "That is why I keep telling you to rest. You never listen until a doctor says the same thing." He said I should observe my habits too. "Habits?" "Yes. Food, sleep, work, things like that." For the first time that evening, his fingers paused around his cup. Only for a second. Then he smiled again. "That makes sense. Then tonight, start with the tea. Drink it slowly and go upstairs early." Keneilwe wrapped both hands around her cup but did not drink. "Can I take it upstairs?" Chipiso's eyes moved to the tea, then back to her face. "Why?" "I want to shower first, then drink it in bed. It will be cold by then." "I can still drink it. It works better warm." There it was again. Not love, not concern. A need for the cup to be finished under his eyes. Keneilwe tilted her head slightly. "You really believe in this tea?" He chuckled, but the sound was too short. "I believe in anything that helps you sleep. Maybe I should skip it tonight." His expression changed, not enough for a stranger to notice, but enough for a wife who had spent years reading the smallest shifts in his face. "Why would you skip it?" "I'm already sleepy, Keneilwe." His voice remained gentle, but the softness had a thin edge now. "You promised the doctor you would build a routine. Do not start by refusing the one thing that helps you rest." She looked at him across the polished dining sign table, past the protea flowers, the expensive candles, and the perfect arrangement of plates no one had used. Once, this room had felt like proof that they had built a successful life together. Now it felt like a beautiful stage, and Ken Shipizo had been directing her movements without ever telling her there was a script. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'll drink it." His shoulders relaxed. That was the moment Keneilwe knew she had to be even calmer than him. She lifted the cup and let the rim touch her lips. She allowed him to see the motion. Then she swallowed only the smallest amount, enough to make the act believable, not enough to satisfy the fear growing beneath her ribs. "Good?" he asked. "As usual, finish it before it cools." She gave him a faint smile. "You sound like you're giving medicine to a child." Shepiso's smile tightened. "Don't say strange things. I was only joking. Sometimes your jokes are not funny anymore." Keneilwe lowered her eyes, pretending to accept the correction. In truth, every response from him was becoming another mark in her mind. His insistence, his irritation when she delayed, his gaze falling again and again to the cup, not to her face. A few minutes later, she placed a hand over her stomach. "I feel a little uncomfortable." Shepiso leaned forward. "What's wrong?" "Maybe the soup was too rich. I made it light." "I know. I just need to go to the bathroom." She picked up the cup. He stood immediately. "Leave it here." Keneilwe paused. "Why?" "So it doesn't spill." "It's only tea, Keen." "I'll be careful." For a moment they stood facing each other, the cup warm between her hands, the silence stretching across the room. Then Shepiso smiled again, but this time the smile did not reach his eyes. "Fine, but don't forget it there." "I won't." She walked upstairs with measured steps, feeling his gaze on her back until she turned the corner. Inside the bathroom, she locked the door and turned on the faucet. The sound of running water filled the room. Her hands moved quickly but carefully. From the small inner pocket of her robe, she took out a clean glass vial she had prepared earlier, the kind used for samples, wrapped in a soft cloth so it would make no sound. She poured part of the tea into it. The ruby liquid slid into the vial like something harmless. But Keneilwe no longer trusted appearances. She sealed it tightly, wiped the outside, wrapped it again, and hid it deep inside her cosmetic pouch. Then she poured the remaining tea into the sink, rinsed the cup, and watched the red color disappear beneath the water. For a moment, she gripped the edge of the sink. Her reflection looked back at her from the mirror. Elegant, silent, awake. She whispered to herself, I am not imagining this. Then she took the empty cup and returned downstairs. Shepiso looked up from the sofa when she entered the living room. You finished it? Yes. His face softened with relief. There was no reason for relief if it had only been tea. Keneilwe placed the cup on the tray. I'm going to sleep. That's good. You'll feel better tomorrow. She nodded. Good night, Shepiso. Good night, my love. My love. The words followed her up the stairs like perfume over smoke. She did not sleep easily that night. The vial was hidden inside her handbag, her red notebook beneath a folded scarf. Her mind kept moving through every gesture, every sentence, every glance at the cup. By morning, she already knew where to go. An independent laboratory recommended by Dr. Ogile, far enough from Sipiso's circle, professional enough to handle the sample discreetly. When the results came back, Keneilwe sat alone in her car before opening them. Her fingers were cold. For several seconds, she only stared at the document header, praying without words that she had been wrong, that she had been tired, that she had allowed fear to build a monster out of a loving habit. Then she read. The tea contained a high amount of sleep-inducing active ingredients combined with a common non-prescription sleep aid. Repeated use could impair alertness, reaction time, and short-term memory. The words did not scream. They did not need to. They entered Keneilwe quietly and broke something very old inside her. Not her strength, her illusion. She folded the report slowly and placed it inside her bag. She did not cry in the car park. She did not call Shepiso. She did not send a message asking how he could do this to her. Because now she understood that if she reacted too soon, he would take her pain and turn it into proof that she was unstable. So she drove to the studio. She chaired a meeting. She approved fabric samples. She smiled at a client. And inside her, a woman who had been moving through fog finally touched solid ground. That evening, a message from Shepiso appeared on her phone. I'll make your tea lighter tonight so you can sleep deeply without feeling heavy. Keneilwe read it once. Then again. Then she saved it. Not because she wanted to remember his sweetness, because she needed to preserve his mistake. She opened the red notebook and wrote, The tea is not ordinary. The symptoms are not only stress. He knows I drink it every night. From now on, I must be careful. No confrontation. Evidence first. She closed the notebook. Outside her office window, Santon's towers burned gold beneath the setting sun. Inside, Keneilwe sat still, one hand resting over the report in her bag. She had wanted the truth. Now she had it. And the truth was more painful than doubt. But it was also cleaner. Because doubt makes a woman question herself. Truth gives her a place to stand. From that moment on, Shepiso was no longer the only one watching. Keneilwe would watch too. Quietly, patiently. And this time she would remember everything. The dining room of the modern villa in Santon, Johannesburg, was filled with warm golden light, the kind that made everything appear gentle, even when the truth beneath it was turning cold. The polished white stone table reflected the glow of the pennon lights. A vase of white product stood in the center, beside two porcelain cups with thin gold rims and a glass teapot filled with ruby red hibiscus tea. Keneilwe Ramotsamai sat across from Shepiso Motlong, wearing an elegant emerald green dress with subtle gold embroidery along the neckline. Her hair was pinned low at the back of her head. Her makeup was soft, her shoulders relaxed, her hands steady. But inside her leather bag, hidden beneath a folded silk scarf, lay the laboratory report. The tea was not ordinary. The symptoms were not only stress. The man sitting across from her knew exactly how often she drank it. Since receiving the results, Keneilwe had lived inside a silence heavier than any argument. She had gone to work, attended meetings, approved design plans, smiled at clients, and spoken kindly to her staff as though her world had not cracked open. No one at Ramotsamai Living Studio knew that their founder had spent the past few nights pretending to sleep while her mind counted every detail of her own home: the cup, the tray, the smell, the way Shepiso watched. Tonight, she had made a dangerous decision, but not a reckless one. She would not confront him. She would not accuse him. She would not give him the chance to look at her with that wounded softness and say, "Keen, you are imagining things again." She needed to know whether the reaction was tied to her drinking the tea. She needed to know what he would do if the cup meant for her did not remain hers. Shepiso entered from the kitchen carrying the tray. "My love," he said gently, "I made it lighter tonight. You said it felt heavy before, so I adjusted it." Keneilwe looked up at him. "Lighter?" "Yes." He placed the cup on the right in front of her. "You will sleep well, but you should not wake up feeling dull." The sentence moved through the room like a thin blade. Keneilwe smiled faintly. "You know exactly how to adjust it now." He paused for half a second, then chuckled. "After making it for you so many nights, of course I know." "Of course." He sat opposite her, his own cup placed on the left. For a moment, neither of them drank. Outside, the city lights shimmered beyond the glass wall. Inside, the air smelled of hibiscus, honey, and something bitter hiding beneath sweetness. Shepiso leaned back in his chair. "You have been distant these days. I have been tired. That is why you need to let me help more." Keneilwe lowered her eyes to the tea. "Help with what?" "With the studio, with decisions, with paperwork." His voice stayed warm, almost affectionate. "You do not have to carry everything like you are still alone in this world. I never said I was alone, but you behave like it." He smiled. "Even when your husband is right here." She looked at him then carefully. Once that sentence would have made her feel guilty. She would have softened, reached for his hand, apologized for being stubborn, and thanked him for caring. But now she heard something else beneath it. "If you do not let me decide, you are rejecting love." Keneilwe took a slow breath. "Shepiso," she said quietly, "do you think I am still capable of running my own company?" His expression softened immediately. "Keen, do not ask it like that." "How should I ask?" "I think you are brilliant. Everyone knows that. But brilliant people also burn out. They forget things. They make mistakes. They need someone loyal beside them before the world notices their weakness." "My weakness?" He reached across the table and touched her hand. "Your exhaustion." She let his hand rest over hers. Warm sin, familiar pressure. The same hand that had once held hers through grief now rested on top of hers while trying to push her towards surrender. Keneilwe looked down at the napkin beside her plate. Then she let it fall. The white linen slipped from her lap and landed near her feet. "Oh," she said softly. She bent down to pick it up. At the same moment, with a movement so small it would have looked accidental to anyone watching, her other hand shifted the two cups. Right to her left, left to right. The teacups made no sound against the tablecloth. When she sat upright again, her face had not changed. Shepiso had glanced toward the window, checking a message on his phone. He had not noticed. Keneilwe placed the napkin back on her lap. Her heart did not race. That frightened her more than panic would have. She was calm, too calm. Not because she felt nothing, but because the woman inside her had crossed a line where fear was no longer useful. Fear had warned her. Now truth required steadiness. Shepiso put his phone down. "What were you saying?" "I asked if you thought I was weak." He sighed as if hurt by the word. "No, I think you are tired. And I think if you love me, you should trust me before you break yourself trying to prove you can do everything." Keneilwe lifted the cup now in front of her, the one that had originally been his. She let the rim touch her lips but barely drank. Shepiso watched. "Drink properly," he said gently. "It will help." She smiled. "You first." He looked slightly surprised. "Me? You made it lighter tonight. I want to know if it tastes different." He laughed. "Keen, it is your tea. Then taste mine." For the first time, his smile did not arrive quickly. His eyes moved to the cup in her hand, then to the cup before him. A tiny silence opened between them. Keneilwe held his gaze. not challenging, not accusing, only waiting. Shepiso finally picked up the cup in front of him, the one that had been prepared for her. Fine, he said, if it makes you happy. He took a sip, then another, longer one. Keneilwe watched him swallow. There was no satisfaction in her, no triumph, no sweet taste of revenge, only a cold sadness so deep it almost felt calm. Because in that moment, the question was no longer whether tea mattered. The question was how long this man had been sitting across from her, calling control protection and fear concern. See, he said, setting the cup down. Perfectly fine. Yes, Keneilwe replied softly. Perfectly fine. They finished the conversation like two people performing a marriage they both understood differently. Shepiso spoke about the studio's finances, about how she should not handle stressful accounts at night, about Refilwe Sebego, a financial consultant he trusted who could help structure things more professionally. Keneilwe listened. Every word mattered now. Refilwe? She asked. Yes, she is excellent, strategic. She works with families who need to protect assets. Protect assets from what? From bad decisions made under pressure. Whose bad decisions? He looked at her gently. Yours if you keep refusing rest. There it was, not a slip, not an accident. A window opening. Keneilwe lowered her eyes, letting him believe his words had landed where he wanted them. Maybe you are right, she whispered. Shepiso reached for the cup again and took another drink. This time, Keneilwe looked away. She did not want to watch, not because she felt guilty for him. He had prepared that cup for her, but because she refused to let herself become someone who found pleasure in another person's downfall. What she needed tonight was confirmation, not revenge. What she wanted was freedom, not cruelty. Later, Shepiso rubbed his temple. Keneilwe noticed. You okay? She asked. He frowned slightly. Maybe I am more tired than I thought. You should rest. He stood, then stopped near the kitchen island. What was I getting? Keneilwe looked at him. You said you wanted water. He blinked. Right, water. The room became very quiet. He poured water into a glass, drank only half, then placed it down and leaned one hand against the counter. I think I will go upstairs early, he said. Keneilwe nodded. That may be best. He walked toward her and kissed the top of her head. Finish your tea. She looked at the cup before her, the one that had originally belonged to him. I will, but she did not. After he went upstairs, Keneilwe carried both cups to the kitchen. She poured the remaining tea down the sink, rinsed them carefully, then stood very still as the water ran. Only then did she allow her hand to grip the edge of the counter. She did not cry. Not yet. Her tears felt too valuable to spend in the kitchen where the lie had been brewed. She took the red notebook from her bag and opened it on the counter. She wrote, First cup switch. Shepiso drank nearly half of the cup meant for me. He rubbed his temple, forgot he was getting water, said he was tired, mentioned Refilwe Sebego and asset protection. Do not conclude too quickly. Continue observing. Do not confront. She underlined the last sentence. Do not confront, because now she understood something important. The truth was not only in the tea. The tea was only one door. Behind it was something larger. Paperwork, money, the studio, her authority, maybe even the land her parents had left her. Keneilwe closed the notebook. Upstairs, the man who had tried to make her doubt her own mind was now sleeping under the same roof. Once, that thought would have broken her. Tonight, it sharpened her. She walked to the window and looked out at Santon's glittering towers. People often imagine betrayal as a loud thing, a shouted confession, a broken plate, a dramatic scene in front of witnesses. But sometimes betrayal is quiet. It sits across from you at dinner. It asks if you are tired. It remembers how much honey you like. It tells you to drink before the tea gets cold. Keneilwe placed one hand over the red notebook. Tonight, she had not won. She had only confirmed that she was not losing her mind. And for who had been pushed to doubt herself, that was the first piece of her life returning to her hands. She turned off the kitchen light and walked upstairs, not as a wife ready to forgive without answers, but as a woman preparing to protect herself with patience. She would not destroy him with anger. She would not expose him with noise. She would walk with evidence, step by step, because sometimes the first act of courage is not shouting the truth. It is remembering it. Keneilwe Ramotsamai stepped into Advocate Mfo Ramathi's law office on the upper floor of a quiet building in Sandton, Johannesburg. The city moved beneath the windows in polished silence, black cars sliding along wide roads, office towers reflecting the morning sun, people in tailored suits walking as if every minute already belonged to someone else. Inside the office, everything felt different. No soft music, no sweet tea, no husband's careful voice telling her she was tired. Only shelves of legal books, a dark wooden desk, 2 leather chairs, and a woman who had known Keneilwe long before wealth, marriage, or public success had taught her how to hide pain behind expensive fabric. Advocate Mafo Rama stood when Keneilwe entered. She was in her 40s, dressed in a cream blazer over a black dress, her hair neatly pulled back, her eyes sharp but kind. Keneilwe, she said softly. Mufo. For a second, neither woman moved. Then Mufo walked around the desk and embraced her, not the dramatic kind of embrace people give when they want to pull a story from you, but the steady kind that tells you there is still ground beneath your feet. You sounded calm on the phone, Mufo said, when they sat down. That worried me more than if you had cried. Keneilwe gave a small, tired smile. I think I have cried inside so much that my face forgot how to do it. Mfo's expression did not change, but her eyes softened. Start from the beginning. And do not protect anyone while you tell me. Keneilwe placed her leather bag on her lap and took out the red notebook first, then the laboratory report, then copies of messages from Chepiso, then a few printed emails connected to studio decisions she no longer remembered making. Mfo did not interrupt. She read, page by page, line by line. The office was so quiet that Keneilwe could hear the faint sound of traffic far below. She had spent weeks living inside confusion, trying to decide whether she was sick, exhausted, dramatic, or betrayed. But here, with every document placed on her desk under clear morning light, the fog began to form a shape. M4 finally looked up. You did the right thing by documenting everything. Keneilwe swallowed. I switched the cops once. M4's gaze sharpened. Tell me exactly what happened. I did not do it to harm him. I needed to know whether the cup mattered. He drank from the cup meant for me. He became tired. He forgot what he was doing. That was when I knew the tea was not only in my imagination. Fo folded her hands together. Listen to me carefully. Do not do that again. Keneilwe lowered her eyes. I know. I am not saying this because I blame you. I understand why you needed certainty. But from this point forward, everything must be clean. Legally clean. Emotionally clean. Strategically clean. If he is doing what this suggests, he will use anything against you if he gets the chance. I know, Keneilwe whispered. You already have enough to know you are not imagining things. Now we need to know why. Keneilwe looked up. Why? Mfo tapped the folder gently. People rarely go this far just to make someone sleep. There is usually a purpose. Control, money, property, power of signature, reputation. We need to look behind the tea. Keneilwe opened another envelope, this one brown and thicker than the others. These are the papers he has been asking me to sign. Mfo took them from her. At first, her face showed nothing. That was one of the reasons Keneilwe trusted her. Mfo did not react quickly for performance. She read like a woman who understood that one sentence in small print could destroy a life more quietly than a shout. The first document was an advisory contract. The second was a limited power of attorney. The third involved company signing authority. The fourth mentioned a parcel of commercial land Keneilwe's parents had left to her before they passed away. Mfo turned one page, then another. Keneilwe, she said at last. Did you sign any of these? No, not yet. Mfo exhaled slowly. Good. Keneilwe's fingers tightened around her bag. How bad is it? Mfo looked at her directly. If you sign these under the wrong conditions, Chepiso could represent you in major financial decisions if you were later described as medically or mentally unfit to manage daily affairs. The studio's approval structure could shift. The land file could become vulnerable. And this consulting agreement, she lifted one page. This links to Refilwe Sebego's firm. Keneilwe went still. Refilwe. The polished financial consultant Tese Paiso had mentioned so casually. The woman who smiled at business dinners, wore silk suits, spoke in soft professional language, and always praised Keneilwe's talent. before suggesting she let strong systems protect her from burnout. She told me once that creative women should not be forced to handle dry paperwork, Keneilwe said, slowly. She said I deserve to focus only on vision. Mfo's mouth tightened. That is a beautiful way to tell a woman to move away from her own authority. Keneilwe looked toward the window. Outside, Santon glittered like success. Inside, something in her chest turned hollow. She remembered every time Shepiso had said, "Let me handle that." Every time he had called her brilliant but tired. Every time he had placed tea in front of her and then later spoke about paperwork, rest, protection, and trust. It had not been one act. It had been a pattern. A cup in the evening, a question in the morning, a document on the table, a consultant in the background. A husband slowly building a case that the woman who built everything could no longer manage it. Keneilwe pressed her lips together. Do you think Refilwe knows about the tea? I cannot say that without evidence, Mopo replied. And we will not accuse without evidence. But we will review every connection. Emails, contracts, draft agreements, banking access, company approvals, land registry activity, and any communication involving her firm. What should I do tonight? You go home calmly. Keneilwe gave a bitter little laugh. Calmly? Yes. Calm does not mean weak. Calm means you do not want the person who may be moving against you. Mafo leaned forward. Do not drink anything you do not prepare yourself. Do not sign anything. Keep original documents away from the house. Send me copies of every file. And speak to Dr. Argyle about the lab results, so there is medical record. Keneilwe nodded. Mafo continued. If Chepiso presses you, do not argue. Ask questions. Let him talk. People who believe they are winning often explain more than they should. Keneilwe looked down at her wedding ring. The rose gold band was still beautiful. That made it worse. Ugly things are easier to reject when they look ugly. But betrayal often arrives wearing familiar hands, shared memories, and a voice that once called you beloved. Can someone do all these and still believe they love you? She asked. Mfo was quiet for a moment. Then she answered carefully. Some people call control love because it makes them feel less guilty. Some call ambition responsibility. Some call it takeover protection. But the name they give it does not change what it does to you. Keneilwe closed her eyes briefly. For years, she had been proud of being loved by a gentleman. Shepiso did not embarrass her in public. He did not speak harshly to her in front of others. He did not break things. He remembered anniversaries, opened doors, kissed her forehead, and told people she was the most talented woman he knew. But now she understood something women often learn too late. A man does not need to shout to silence you. Sometimes he only needs to repeat gently and often enough that you are too tired to trust yourself. Mafo gathered the documents into a folder and wrote notes on the front. I will keep these copies. You keep the red notebook safe, but not somewhere he can easily find it. Keneilwe nodded. There is a locked drawer at the studio. Use that. And if you ever feel unsafe, leave first and call me later. Do not try to be brave inside a room where you are outnumbered. I feel foolish, Keneilwe whispered. I design homes for powerful women. I tell clients their spaces should give them peace. And I did not even see what was happening in my own house. Mfo's voice became firm. Do not insult yourself with the shame that belongs to someone else. Keneilwe looked at her. Mafo continued, trusting your husband was not foolish. Loving someone was not foolish. The wrong is not that you believed him. The wrongs is what he may have done with that belief. The words reached a place in Keneilwe that had been quietly blaming itself. She breathed out slowly. For the first time in days, the breath did not feel trapped. Before leaving, Keneilwe stood by the door and looked back at the files on Mfo's desk. They were only papers, thin, silent, ordinary-looking papers. Yet they revealed more than the tea. The tea had tried to weaken her memory. The papers had tried to take her authority. Together, they told the truth of a plan she had not wanted to believe existed. Mfo walked her to the door. Keneilwe, she said. Yes? You are still clear enough to choose the right person before it is too late. Do not forget that. Keneilwe gave a faint smile. That may be the first thing I have truly wanted to remember. When she stepped back into the corridor, the city outside looked the same. Expensive, fast, beautiful. but inside her, something had shifted. She had entered that office as a woman, asking whether she was losing her mind. She left as a woman who understood that someone may have been trying to take her power. There was grief in that understanding, but there was also direction. And direction for a woman who had been pushed into fog was a kind of rescue. The modern villa in Santan glowed beneath soft golden lights, but to Keneilwe Ramotsamai, the house no longer felt like home. It looked the same as always: white stone floors, tall glass walls, handmade vases from local artists, a long dining table polished until it reflected the chandelier above. Yet something inside the space had changed. Not the furniture, not the walls, not the scent of fresh flowers. It was her. She was no longer walking through the house as a wife trying to understand her husband. She was walking through it as a woman gathering evidence. Inside the small inner pocket of her anchor jacket was a tiny voice recorder. In her handbag were copies of the lab report, a note from Dr. Owagil, and a list Advocate Info had written for her. Do not confront, do not sign, do not drink anything you did not prepare yourself. Ask questions, let them talk. Keneilwe had read those lines so many times that by now they felt carved into her breathing. That evening, Chepiso had told her Refilvi Sebego would stop by briefly to discuss some business matters. He had said it casually, as if inviting a consultant into their private home after everything Keneilwe had been experiencing was the most natural thing in the world. Only 30 minutes, he had said. She wants to help us simplify the company structure. Use. Keneilwe had noticed that word. Lately, Shepiso said us whenever he meant himself. He said protect whenever he meant control. He said rest whenever he meant surrender. She stood in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting the gold earrings her mother had left her. Tonight, she had chosen a rust orange dress with deep blue geometric embroidery, strong collars, clear lines, nothing fragile. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were awake in a way they had not been for weeks. Shepiso entered from behind her. You look beautiful, he said. Thank you. A little tired, though. Keneilwe let her shoulders drop slightly. I did not sleep well. His expression softened with quiet satisfaction. That is why you need to let me handle more things. You cannot keep fighting your own body. She looked at him through the mirror. Maybe I should stop fighting. He stepped closer and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. That is all I have been trying to help you understand. Keneilwe lowered her eyes. Not in surrender, in performance, because tonight she needed him to believe she was still drifting exactly where he wanted her to go. A few minutes later, Refilwe Sebego arrived in a navy blue silk suit, carrying a slim leather folder and wearing a perfume that smelled expensive, discreet, and cold. She greeted Keneilwe with a polished smile. Keneilwe, you look lovely. I hope you are feeling stronger. Some days are better than others, Keneilwe replied. Refilwe's eyes moved quickly over her face, as if searching for signs of confusion. That is very understandable. Burnout often appears in waves. Shepiso guided everyone into the lounge. On the low marble table, he had prepared mineral water, small plates of roasted nuts, and 3 delicate glasses. No tea yet. Keneilwe noticed that too. Refilwe opened her folder. I do not want this to feel formal, she said warmly. Think of this as a family protection discussion. Keneilwe tilted her head. Family protection? Yes, you built something remarkable with Ramotsamai leaving Nudio. That kind of success must be protected from sudden pressure, emotional decisions, exhaustion, or legal complications. Shepiso sat beside Keneilwe. Exactly. Refilwe slid a document across the table. This is not about taking anything away from you. It is about creating a support structure. If there are days when you feel overwhelmed, Shepiso can step in more easily. Payments, approvals, client obligations, land-related decisions, company restructuring. Keneilwe looked at the document but did not touch the pen beside it. Land-related decisions? She asked. Refilwe smiled. Only if needed. What land? Shepiso answered before Refilwe could. The commercial parcel from your parents. We discussed this, Kin. It is too valuable to leave without a strategy. Keneilwe slowly turned to him. Did we discuss it? He paused, only for a breath. Then his face softened again. Yes, you may not remember clearly, but we did. Refilwe leaned forward, her voice gentle. Keneilwe, this is exactly why proper structures help. No one is questioning your talent, but memory gaps can create risk. Investors, clients, banks, they do not always understand personal pressure. Keneilwe looked down at her hands. The recorder remained hidden. Every word was being captured. She let a small silence pass, long enough for both of them to believe their point had landed. Then she asked quietly, "If this is only sport, why does your firm appear in the appendix?" Refilwi's smile weakened. Shepiso's head turned toward her. "What do you mean?" he asked. Keneilwe kept her voice soft. "I saw the draft. Refilwi's consulting company is listed as a strategic advisory partner. I may forget some things, but I still read. Refilwi recovered first. That is start. My firm would simply assist with implementation." Implementation of what? The protection structure. Protection from whom? The room became very still. Shepiso placed his glass down carefully. "Kini, no one is attacking you. I did not say anyone was. But you are speaking as if we are enemies." Keneilwe turned to him. "Are we?" The question hung in the lounge like smoke. For the first time, Shepiso's expression hardened just enough for the man beneath the gentleness to show. "You are tired," he said. Refilwe added quickly, "and that is not something to be ashamed of." Many successful women reach a stage where delegation becomes necessary. "Delegation," Keneilwe repeated. "Yes." Keneilwe nodded slowly. "So if I sign, Shepiso can approve more things without waiting for me." "Only under agreed conditions," Refilwe said. "And who defines those conditions?" Refilwe glanced at Shepiso. It was brief, but Keneilwe saw it. Shepiso leaned closer. "Keneilwe, I am your husband. If you cannot trust me, who can you trust?" There it was. The sentence that sounded like love but carried the weight of a command. Keneilwe let her face soften, as if the words had touched guilt inside her. "I want to trust you," she whispered. Shepiso's shoulders relaxed. Refilwe also seemed to breathe more easily. "But I need to understand before I sign anything," Keneilwe continued. Shepiso's jaw tightened. "No one is asking you to sign tonight. That is good. But delaying too long may create problems," Refilwe said, "especially if there are questions about your capacity to manage matters consistently." Keneilwe looked at her. "Who is asking those questions?" Refu fell silent. Shepiso reached for the folder and closed it halfway. "Maybe this is enough for tonight." Keneilwe knew then that she had pushed close to the edge. Not too far, just close enough. She lowered her eyes again. "I am sorry. Maybe I am more tired than I thought." Shepiso immediately changed back into the caring husband. "It is okay, my love." He touched her shoulder. "No one is forcing you. No one is forcing you." Yet the folder was on the table. The pen was ready. The consultant was in her house. The tea had been in her cup for weeks. Keneilwe nodded. "I think I should rest." Refilwe stood, smoothing her jacket. "Of course. We can revisit this when you feel clearer." Keneilwe looked at her directly. "Yes, wa feel clearer." For a brief second, Refilwe did not seem to know whether the words were innocent or not. After Refilwe left, Shepiso walked her to the door, speaking in a low voice Keneilwe could not fully hear. She stayed in the lounge, still seated, her hand resting over the recorder hidden inside her pocket. When he returned, his face was tired but controlled. "You embarrassed me," he said quietly. Keneilwe looked up. "How?" "By making Refilwe feel as if she came here to steal from you." "Did she?" Shepiso stared at her. "This is what I mean. You are not yourself lately." Keneilwe almost smiled, not because it was funny, because she finally heard the sentence for what it was: a tool, a rope, a soft cloth placed over her mouth. She stood slowly. "Maybe I should sleep." "Yes," he said. "You should. Good night, Shepiso." He stepped closer, as if he wanted to kiss her forehead, but she turned slightly, making it look natural enough to avoid cruelty. His lips touched only the air beside her hair. She walked upstairs calmly. Only when the bedroom door closed did she take out the recorder and stop it. Her hands were steady. She listened to a few seconds of the recording. Refilwi's voice filled the room. "Memory gaps can create risk." Then Shepiso's. "If you cannot trust me, who can you trust?" Keneilwe closed her eyes. Those words would have broken her weeks ago. Tonight, they strengthened the case. She opened the red notebook and wrote, "They do not want me healthier. They want me more dependent." Refilwe knows the documents. Shepiso is using memory concerns to pressure me. No signature. Send recording to M4. She put down the pen. For a long moment, she sat at the edge of the bed, looking at the beautiful room she once thought represented safety. The silk curtains, the city view, the framed wedding photograph on the dresser. In the photo, Shepiso was smiling at her as if she were the most precious thing in his world. Maybe she had been precious, but some people treat precious things like possessions. They polish them, display them, control them, and call it love. Keneilwe rose, took the wedding photo, and placed it face down inside the drawer. She did not smash it. She did not throw it. She did not need noise to prove she was hurt. Tonight, she had done something stronger. She had listened. She had remembered. She had let them speak long enough for the truth to come out in their own voices. And as he turned off the bedroom light, Keneilwe understood something clearly. The weakest woman in that house was not the one they thought they were controlling. It was the one who now knew the whole truth and still had the discipline to wait. Warm golden light fell across the dining room of the villa in Sandton, Johannesburg, making everything look so elegant it almost seemed unreal. On the table were cream linen napkins, porcelain plates with gold rims, white proteas arranged in a tall glass vase, and glasses sparkling beneath the crystal light. Beyond the glass doors, the city glowed like a carpet of diamonds spread beneath the night sky. Keneilwe Ramotsamai sat at the head of the table, wearing a wine-red Ankara dress with touches of bronze gold. And around her neck was the small gold-beaded necklace her mother had left her. Her face was calm. Her eyes no longer carried the tired fog from the weeks before. But Shepiso Motlang did not notice. He only saw what he wanted to see, a wife softened enough to sign what he had prepared. Beside him, Refilwe Sebego sat with perfect posture, wearing a teal silk dress that fit her neatly, her braided hair arranged elegantly, and a polite smile on her face. In front of them lay a cream-colored folder tied with a brown ribbon, presented like an expensive gift. But Keneilwe knew not every gift is offered with love. Some things are wrapped beautifully, only so the person receiving them forgets there is a trap inside. Shepiso pushed the folder toward her. "Kin," he said gently, "I think tonight we should complete this. You have been tired for too long." Keneilwe looked down at the papers. "What needs to be completed?" Refilwe smiled. "Just a few procedures to protect your assets and reduce the burden on you. Nothing takes away your rights." "Nothing takes away my rights," Keneilwe asked. Shepiso placed his hands on the table, his voice lowering. "You are still the owner of the studio. You are still my wife. No one is taking anything from you. I only want the authority to assist you when you are not clear enough to handle major matters." Keneilwe lifted her eyes. "Who said I am not clear enough?" The room went silent for a beat. Refilwe tilted her head slightly. "Keneilwe, we have all seen that you have not been well recently. You forget appointments, emails, sometimes even repeat the same questions. Accepting support is not failure." "Exactly," Shepiso added quickly. "It is wisdom." Keneilwe looked at the man in front of her. The same face, the same eyes, the same voice that had once made her believe she was loved. He was not slamming the table. He was not shouting. He was not using one harsh word. And that was what made it hurt more. He was taking away her rights with the voice of a good husband. She opened the folder. "Where do I need to sign?" Shepiso's eyes brightened slightly. Refilwe's shoulders relaxed, as if the performance had finally reached its most favorable scene. "Here," Shepiso said, pointing to the first page. "And a few more places. I'll show you." Keneilwe picked up the pen. She looked at the small line at the bottom of the page, then slowly signed only the section confirming she had received and reviewed the documents, exactly as Advocate Info Ramate had instructed her. Not a transfer of authority, not a power of attorney, only an acknowledgement that she had received the papers. Shepiso did not notice. He was too busy believing he had won. "Good," he breathed. "See, it was not difficult." Keneilwe put the pen down. "No," she said, "especially when you know exactly what you are signing." Shepiso's smile froze. Refilwe studied her more carefully. "What do you mean by that?" Keneilwe did not answer immediately. She reached for her glass of water, took a small sip, then placed it down very gently. The sound of glass touching the table rang through the quiet room like a final period. Shepiso, she said. Would you like to hear what you said? He frowned. Keen, you are starting again. No. She looked directly into his eyes. This time I am ending it. She opened the clutch beside her and took out a small device. With one press, Shepiso's voice filled the room. I have prepared everything. You do not need to read all of it. I know reading too much gives you headaches lately. Then came Refilwi's voice. If clients hear that you are forgetting appointments and contracts, they will start asking questions. Refilwi's face changed. Shepiso stood abruptly. You recorded me. Keneilwe remained seated. I recorded a conversation I was part of inside my own home after my doctor and lawyer advised me to protect myself. Lawyer? Refilwi asked quietly. The living room door opened. Advocate Keneilwe Ramotsamai stepped in, wearing an ivory white suit and carrying a leather folder. Beside her walked a middle-aged bank representative in a dark blue suit. No noise, no cheap drama, no shouting, only the truth entering the room on steady feet. Shepiso looked at them, then back at Keneilwe. What are you doing? Keneilwe took out the T-test results, copies of emails, her notebook records, and the company signing authority review. She placed each item on the table, one by one, like setting bricks back into place under a house someone had tried to quietly damage. I am doing what you never thought I was still clear enough to do. I am reading, I am remembering, and I am protecting what belongs to me. Keneilwe stood beside her, her voice calm. Mr. Motlang, Miss Sebego, every proposal related to signing authority, operational control, and asset transfer involving my client will be suspended for legal review. The bank has already been informed not to process any changes without direct verification from Mrs. Ramotsamai. The bank representative nodded. We have frozen the approval change request until an official review is complete. Refilwi stood, her soft tone gone. This is insulting. I was only providing professional advice. Keneilwe looked at her. A real professional advises a client to read carefully before signing. She does not sit in that client's home and use her exhaustion as a reason to rush the process. Refilwi had no answer. Shepiso stepped closer to her. Keen, you are destroying our marriage. That sentence finally made her eyes ache, but she did not cry. No, she said softly, I am only stopping you from destroying me. He stared at her as if he no longer recognized the woman he had lived with. Not because she had changed too much, but because she had returned to the woman he had tried to blur. Clear, sea-minded, self-respecting, and no longer afraid of the truth. I did everything for us, he said, his voice weakening. Then why does every document lead control back to you? He fell silent. And inside that silence, Keneilwe found an answer clearer than any confession. M4 closed her folder. From now on, all communication will go through my office. Refilwi picked up her handbag and walked quickly toward the door. Shepiso remained standing in the beautiful dining room among the white proteas and unfinished glasses. He had once believed this room would be the place where he could make his wife sign away her life. He did not know that this same room would become the place where Keneilwe took back her voice. When the door closed behind them, the house fell silent. Keneilwe sat down and placed her hand over the red notebook. She did not feel victory, she felt pain. But beneath that pain was a clear space she had lost for far too long. Tonight, she did not need anyone to make her tea. She did not need anyone to tell her to sleep. She did not need anyone to call control love. Because there are moments when a woman does not need to scream to reclaim her life. She only needs to place the truth on the table, look directly at the person who made her doubt herself, and calmly say, from here on, I sign my own life. 6 months later, sunlight fell through the wide glass windows of Ramotsamai living studio, laying a soft honey-colored glow over rolls of Ankara fabric, walnut wood samples, and pieces of marble. Outside Sandton, Johannesburg was still busy, still elegant, still full of people walking quickly in expensive suits, phones in hand, eyes fixed on important meetings. But inside Keneilwe Ramotsamai's studio, everything felt slower, warmer, and more real. She stood in the middle of the space she had built with her own hands from nothing. No more cameras of doubt inside her mind. No more cup of tea she had to finish. No more gentle voice standing behind her. reminding her that she was growing weak. The studio had changed after everything that happened. The main wall had been repainted in a warm cream color. On it hung a large painting by a young female artist from Soweto, a woman standing inside a house with its doors wide open, darkness behind her and sunlight ahead. No one on the design team asked why Keneilwe had chosen that painting. Some things do not need explanation. A person who has walked through darkness recognizes light when she sees it, and Thabi Singh walked over with a new folder in her hands. Miss Keneilwe, the list of participants for today's workshop is complete. 23 women. Keneilwe turned around and smiled. Today, she wore a turmeric yellow jumpsuit with a long cape patterned in the belly, blue and earthy red. Around her neck was the small beaded necklace her mother had left her, not to prove anything to anyone, but to remind herself that some inheritances cannot be taken away with the signature. Where are they coming from, she asked. Alexandra, Soweto, Midrand, Pretoria. Some are running small businesses from home. Some want to open tailoring shops. Some left work to care for family and now want to start again. Keneilwe nodded slowly. Then prepare extra robust tea and pastries. Today is not just a lesson. For some of them, it may be the first time they hear that their dreams deserve a plan too. Nanthabi Singh looked at her, her eyes softening. You are very different now. Keneilwe smiled lightly. Better or more difficult? More peaceful. That word made Keneilwe silent for a moment. Peaceful. Before, she had thought peace meant having a beautiful house, a marriage that looked perfect, a secure bank account, respected clients, and a husband who made tea for her every night. But now she understood that peace was not having someone beside you saying they would handle everything for you. Peace was having the right to hear the voice inside yourself without anyone turning it into paranoia. After the night when all the truth was placed on the table, her marriage to Chepiso did not end in a loud storm. There were no thrown objects, no curses in front of neighbors, no revenge scene created so that others could applaud. Keneilwe chose the legal path, slow, clear, and clean. Advocate Mfo Ramade represented her in every document. The bank froze all requests to change or approve authority. The studio remained under her leadership. The land her parents had left her was never transferred. Refiwe Sebego withdrew from all consulting files after the emails and recordings were reviewed. She later sent Keneilwe a long message, saying everything had only been a professional misunderstanding, that she never meant to hurt anyone, and that she thought she was helping the family. Keneilwe read it all. Then she saved it for her lawyer. She did not reply. Chepiso also called many times. At first he was angry. Then he explained. Then he asked to meet privately, saying everything had been exaggerated, that he had only been worried about their future and that outsiders could never understand their marriage. The last time, he left a voice message. Kin, I know I was wrong in some ways, but you know I love you. You cannot erase all our years together because of one mistake. Keneilwe listened to that message in her car while parked outside the studio. She cried, not because she wanted to go back, but because she was grieving the woman who once believed love could explain everything. That day, she called Mofo. Do you think I am too cold? She asked. Mfo was quiet for a few seconds, then replied, No, Keneilwe. You are only learning that forgiving someone does not mean handing back the keys to the house they once tried to lock you inside. That sentence stayed with her until now. She did not wake up every morning hating Chepiso, nor did she miss him with the same softness as before. She simply understood that some people may once have loved you in the only way they knew how. But when that love becomes control, you are not required to stay just to prove you are forgiving. A woman does not have to wait until she is completely destroyed before she has the right to leave. Voices began to rise from the lounge area. The first participants had arrived. Keneilwe stepped out and saw a group of grown women sitting around the long table. Some wore office dresses, some wore simple shirts, some had bright patterned shawls wrapped around their shoulders. A few looked around the elegant studio shyly, as if afraid they did not belong there. Keneilwe understood that look. She had once seen it in the mirror. She walked to the head of the table. Good morning, everyone. I am Keneilwe Ramotsamai. Thank you for coming. A woman in a moss green dress raised her hand, her voice slightly nervous. Ma'am, is today's session about design or business? Keneilwe smiled, both. But before we speak about design or business, I want to speak about the right to trust yourself. The room became quiet. She placed one hand on the wooden table. Some women do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because too many people tell them they are not clear enough, strong enough, or wide enough to keep belongs to them. And sometimes, the person saying that is someone very close to them. Another woman lowered her head. Keneilwe did not ask what she had been through. Many women's pain does not need to be named in front of a crowd to become real. The first thing I want you to remember, Keneilwe continued, is never sign any document simply because someone says they love you. Real love gives you time to read. It gives you permission to ask. It gives you space to understand. If someone pushes you to sign quickly, stay silent quickly, or trust quickly, perhaps what they need is not your peace, but control over you. No one clapped. But many women looked up, and sometimes the awakened eyes of one woman are stronger than applause. After the session, one participant stayed behind. She looked to be in her 30s, wearing a red-orange floral dress that was slightly old but carefully ironed. Mrs. Keneilwe, she said softly, I do not know what your real story is, but thank you for what saying I have the right to ask questions before I trust. I think I forgot that for a long time. Keneilwe looked at her and answered gently, that is all right. Many of us forget. What matters is that we remember before it is too late. The woman nodded, her eyes turning red, then left the studio. Keneilwe stood alone in the quiet space. She looked at the chairs being arranged back into place, the warm cups of rooibos tea, and the small notebooks with a few lines left behind. Perhaps today would not change the whole world, but it could change the way one woman looked at herself when she returned home. And for Keneilwe, that was meaningful enough. Later, she returned to her private office, where the old red notebook was kept inside a locked drawer. She no longer needed to open it every night to prove she was clear-minded, but she still kept it there like a silent witness to the season when she had pulled herself out of doubt. On her desk, she placed a new cup of tea, not the hibiscus tea Chepiso used to prepare, just light rooibos, no honey, no strange herbs, made by her own hands. She lifted the cup and took a small sip. For the first time in a long time, tea was only tea. Not a test, not a trap, not something that made her check who was standing behind her. Only a warm taste touching her tongue, ordinary, simple, and free. Keneilwe leaned back in her chair and looked at the new design plan in front of her. It was a drawing for a small training center for women entrepreneurs to be built on part of the land her parents had left her. Not to prove she had won. Not to make Chepiso see what he had lost, but to turn a place that had almost been taken from her into a space where other women could learn how to keep their own lives. She picked up her pen and wrote one small line in the corner of the drawing. A safe room begins with a woman brave enough to trust her own discomfort. Outside, Santon still sparkled. Inside, Keneilwe smiled. She was no longer the woman who tried to save a marriage by losing her voice. She also did not become bitter because she had been betrayed. She simply became a clearer version of herself, a woman who understood that kindness does not mean allowing others to cross your boundaries, and forgiveness does not mean returning to the place that once made you small. If you are listening to this story and you have ever felt dismissed, made to doubt yourself, or told that control was love, remember this: you are not weak because you once trusted the wrong person. You only need enough courage to trust yourself again. A woman does not have to be perfect to deserve respect. She only needs to remember that her life is not a document for someone else to sign in her place. If Keneilwe's story touched your heart, comment the word "rise" and tell me what city you are watching from. Somewhere out there, another woman may read your comment and find the greatest lesson from Keneilwe's story is not only found in the cup of tea, the documents, or the betrayal within her marriage. The real lesson begins in the moment a woman starts believing in herself again. In life, some people do not hurt us with shouting or violent actions. They hurt us with conditional tenderness, with words that sound like concern, and with quiet ways of making us doubt our memory, our emotions, and our judgment. Keneilwe once believed that love meant absolute trust. But after everything, she understood that true love never asks a woman to become smaller, stay silent, sign faster, ask fewer questions, or depend on someone more than she should. A healthy relationship gives you the right to read carefully, to ask questions, and to rest without losing control over your own life. This story also reminds us that a woman's intuition should not be dismissed. When something repeatedly makes you feel uneasy, do not rush to blame yourself for being too sensitive. Stay calm, observe, write things down, seek the right support. Protect yourself with truth, not anger. Keneilwe's victory was not about humiliating Shepiso. Her victory was refusing to let betrayal turn her bitter. She chose to rise, keep her dignity, and use her painful experience to help other women. Sometimes strength does not begin with a scream. It begins when you say quietly in your heart, "From today on, I will not let anyone else sign my life for me." His strength to stand up too.